In our interview slot tonight, we are taking you deep into the world of investment, expansion, and innovation for both small and big businesses. Now, to discuss this at length, I'm now joined via Zoom from Midrand, South Africa, by Trudy Theledi, the Chief Executive Officer for Invest Edge Africa. A very good evening to you, Trudy, and thank you very much for joining us on Business Today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Trudy, perhaps can you tell us a bit more as to what exactly is Invest Edge Africa?
So Invest Edge Africa is a company that focuses on providing alternative sources of funding to SMMEs, particularly in South Africa. And we also focus on strategic advisory as well, assisting companies to be able to have advice in terms of strategy and on how they can scale. And we're also building up a VC fund where we're able to actually invest in.
Right. I must apologize. There's a bit of a delay there, but we did catch what you said there towards the end. Now, Trudy, how crucial is the funding of businesses for expansion and growth purposes? Also keeping in mind that there is a bit of a distinction between scale and growth of a business, no?
Yes, definitely. It's very important. Obviously, when you're at the initial stage or ideation stage of your business, there's not much capital that's required there because obviously you're trying to bring this vision to life. But when you do want to scale and tap into other markets and you want to grow your operations, then you definitely do need funding and you do need to actually grow. I think that's where the growth part is. The distinction between growth and scale is that even in ideation phase, you're able to grow from one stage to another. But when you scale, you are now moving to a different category because now you require so much capital and resources in order to take over a particular space or market.
Right. I mean, Trudy, perhaps just to get a sense from you, how has the reception been for some of the services that you are offering in South Africa? And of course, one can only assume that you are trying to expand within either the SADC region or the Sub-Saharan African region. How has the response and the sentiment regarding some of your service offering specifically, but also looking at the importance and the significance of these services across businesses, African started or founded businesses?
Well, the sentiments have been great so far. I think the thing that I love is the fact that we're able to assist businesses that would otherwise not be able to get traditional funding. So it's always great to be able to provide that funding. Sometimes you find that a person meets the criteria in a great way, but they're not able to actually receive traditional funding. So we're able to assist them in that regard. So the sentiments have been great, and I think that we love the fact that we're able to help SMMEs. So yeah, the sentiments have actually been great.
Right. Now, Trudy, can you explain the importance of growth equity for a business in terms of cash flow or expanding capital purposes?
So growth equity is very important. I think you and I just spoke previously about scaling, right? So it's when you desire to actually tap into other markets. It's when you desire to scale your operations, and growth equity or growth capital in this regard is very important. So basically, in a nutshell, that's basically what it means. And the importance of that obviously is growing from strength to strength in terms of your business. Say, for instance, you want to grow from operating within Namibia into South Africa. Obviously, that's now scaling to a different level and also tapping into markets that are outside of the region.
Right, Trudy, let me put this to you. Within your business, within Invest Edge Africa, how are you addressing the challenge of innovation versus or against the backdrop of your traditional financing and advisory services that are really also very held within a very structured and a very stiff and unresponsive way to new innovation, new business ideas, new business models, even?
I think there's a huge challenge when it comes to businesses or startups, even in that the traditional way of providing not only strategic advisory but also funding as well is that, like you're saying, everything is quite rigid. I think even in terms of your banks and whatnot, in terms of funding, they are still very, I don't think they quite understand the landscape of entrepreneurship and how entrepreneurship actually operates. I don't think there's a lot of, what is it, room that's given for innovation. Not a lot of, most of the time traditional funding, they are quite risk averse. So they will actually consider businesses that have been functioning for a certain amount or a
Right.
certain period. And that's where your VCs then come in, and they actually then are able to fund these startups from ideation phase and able to see the value of that innovation and how it could potentially make money. So yeah, there is definitely a large gap that needs to be filled. And I think that's where companies like ours are able to come in and sort of like bridge the two. Because sometimes you do find that there are institutions that are willing to fund, but you need institutions such as ours that are able to actually explain the landscape of
Right.
entrepreneurship.
I mean, which brings me to my next question. Strategic advisory does play quite a crucial role in providing actionable solutions to businesses, your micro, small, medium enterprises looking to scaling their business at some point. Talk to us about why a business would essentially require a robust or quite a comprehensive style of strategic advisory services.
So with strategic advisory, I think it's very, sometimes you can have a great idea, and I'm talking about businesses that might be functioning already, right? But I think there's this distinction of when you're working on the business, sometimes you're not able to work on the business. So when you work on the business, you're able to see, okay, now because we want to scale, we want to get this level. We understand get to this level, but how do we get to that level? And that's how strategic advisory comes in. You have somebody who's objective from the outside, who's able to look at the loopholes that are within the business, or the hindrances that might be standing in the way of the business actually progressing or scaling. And then they're able to look at that objectively and say, okay, these are the loopholes, and this is how we think that you should go or move forward in order to get to the place where you're able to scale.
Right, Trudy, what are some of the best steps you would say to take a business which is planning to identify high growth opportunities?
Well, I think it's very important to do your market research. It's always crucial. I think with any business and at any phase, whether you are about to start out or whether you're about to scale, I think market research is very important. It's very important to understand the kind of market that you're trying to tap into. What gap are you trying to fill? What opportunity are you trying to take advantage of? Because I think there always has to be some kind of gap that you're trying to fill. It's also important to network as well and try and understand the industry that you're going into. Try and learn from those who've gone before you. Obviously, you might be creating something that's slightly a bit more different, but there's always something that you can learn with regards to the industry that could actually add to the business or the place that you're trying to get to. So those are the two crucial things I think are important, as well as your financial analysis. What is it going to take and how much is it going to cost to actually take advantage of these opportunities? So the three things I think I've mentioned are doing your market research and understanding what are the opportunities and how do I take advantage of those opportunities within that market. as well as understanding that from a financial perspective as well, trying to network and get into those spaces of the industry that you're trying to grab opportunities from.
You highlighted two very important points that I just wanted to quickly bring to you. You mentioned the market research and also the concept of really networking, considering the fact of where the African continent is, sub-Saharan Africa, and also looking at the geopolitical landscape and how there's a lot of interest now from the global west or the global north on Africa. Africa having perhaps the biggest middle class or the biggest growing middle class in the world, and all of these components and aspects. How is Invest Edge Africa really looking at positioning itself to be able to assist and to, of course, capitalize on the opportunities that are apparent, but most importantly, really position yourselves in a manner and in a way that will best suit and assist African-born businesses?
Definitely. So we're actually looking at getting investments because, like you say, there is this interest in African talent and businesses and ideas. And so we are trying to create relationships with investors that are from abroad, and trying to really identify ways in which we can grow a fund, like I mentioned previously, so that we can be able to actually invest in these businesses. I think it's so important to have a fund that is African, that is born from an African business, because I think that we understand African problems, we understand the African context, which I think is very important, that even as a funder or somebody who's coming in to invest in this fund, we're also able to paint that picture and that context when these businesses maybe want to invest into businesses in Africa. So how we're positioning ourselves is that we're actually trying to create these relationships that will help us to build up as much capital as possible, because I think it's very crucial. We are not like your Americas where we have, Silicon Valleys and investors that are ready to invest at a drop of a hat at any idea. And I think it's important for VCs to sort of like come up in Africa and invest in our own, because the ideas are there, the businesses are there.
Right.
We just require more capital.
Before I let you go, because we are unfortunately out of time, Invest Edge Africa, just briefly, of course, I do know that you touched a bit on that in your response now, but just some of your short and long-term strategic plans in South Africa, in SADC, and hopefully in Sub-Saharan Africa.
So we really want to explore opportunities and really meet up with some of the businesses that are in some of our countries on the African continent. We're also trying to meet up with other VCs and investors who are ready and willing to partner with us to be able to actually take the entrepreneurial conversation forward, and how we can empower these businesses within Africa. So we're trying to position ourselves and to really talk to countries such as Namibia and investors in Namibia, and also businesses within Namibia. So they can definitely get in touch with us on investedge.africa, and we'll be able to have a conversation on how we can move this continent forward.
Trudy, thank you very much for your time. That's unfortunately all the time that I have for you this evening.
Thank you so much.
That was Trudy Theledi from Midrand, South Africa, the Chief Executive Officer for Invest Edge Africa, taking us through some tips on how to understand investment expansion